please be aware of the fact that this is by no means a omni-comprehensive list of information that you can have on Omnichannel, because otherwise we would stay here for the entire day. Is aiming to give you an overview of the Omnichannel approach and how your company can not only be thriving, but be very successful in Omnichannel if you are putting yourself in mind to do that. So I will not going to check the chat box, because it will be a bit distracting to me, but I promise you at the end of the presentation, I'm trying to answer all your questions. In case it is not possible, of course, you will have my contact and you can get in touch with me for further information. Let's start to share my presentation. Here you go. So let's have a look to what will be the content. So first of all, we are talking about what Omnichannel is and why Omnichannel is so important. Then we are going to talk briefly about the customer recognition and permission, the data collection and the data analytics, to then talk about what does it mean Omnichannel in the real world of your business, particularly with reference with the marketing and services. Then what should change in terms of performance analysis and the organization for your company in order to make a successful Omnichannel. So let's start about saying what Omnichannel is. So Omnichannel is a business, service and marketing approach that seeks to provide the customer with a seamless shopping experience, whether the customer is shopping online or on the desktop or on mobile device, by phone, through your call center or brick and mortar store. If you take Omnichannel seriously, the customer must have a seamless experience across your channel, independently by the channel they are interacting. But what is the kind of approach that each company could have? So I try to define the difference between single channel, multi-channel, cross-channel and omni-channel, which is a usual evolution that normally the companies are doing, from passing from the single channel presence. So that's the beginning, let's say, of your path, when the customer is having the experience only with a single type of touch point, and therefore you as a retailer or as a business interact with them directly, through multi-channel, where the company is expanding and it's reaching a higher level of maturity, and it's interacting with the customer in a single touch point, but independently, where there is not a unique view of the customer across the channels. So business or retailers are operating in silos. Then we are talking about a cross-channel, when in fact the customer sees multiple touch points as a part of the same brand. However, the retailer doesn't have a unique view of the customer, so still operate as a functional silos. And finally, and this is in fact what the companies are aiming for with Omnichannel, is where there is a full seamless customer experience across the channels, where in fact the retailer or the business is having a single view of the customer, coordinated, integrated, and that is used in order to reinforce the brand experience. Why Omnichannel is so important? More than 50% of the customer interaction happen over multi-event, multi-channel journey. And this is probably even more right now. This was from a study of McKinsey of 2013, definitely much more after the COVID. Before to start talking about why Omnichannel is important, you know already two figures that I shared in the introduction of this webinar. Omnichannel customers spend between 10 and 40% more than other customers on their first purchase, and are plus 23% more likely to repeat orders. Let's see through a poll how much a well-established omnichannel strategy impacts on additional customer satisfaction. So the answers are between 5 and 10, 10 and 20, 20 and 30, or over 30. Let's give us some time to vote. I see that we are going in the direction of the over 30. We are almost there. I see. It looks going in a direction. So you have answered over 30%. And in fact, what I can tell you is that customer journey is obviously strongly correlated with the business outcomes. In fact, the customer satisfaction is increasing plus 36% thanks to the omnichannel journey. So you were right. That's exactly the answer. Let's go on and see how much omnichannel strategy impacts on additional willingness to recommend a brand. Again, between 5 and 10, 10 and 20, 20 and 30, and over 30. Rory, if you can launch the poll. Here we go. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Come on. I want to hear your opinion. All right, so it seems that most of you have answered over 30. In fact, the answer is sorry, and the answer is plus 28%. So it's still a very good figure, in fact. 28% of willingness to recommend. It's absolutely a great figure, and this will definitely help the Net Promoter Score, and we'll talk about that later. Finally, last question. How much a well omnichannel established strategy is impacting on additional willingness, additional reduced likeliness to abandon or churn? It seems like quite a split. Okay, that's interesting. You are not 100% convinced. Okay, I think we can end. Yes, so the answer is 33%. So definitely you are less likely to be abandoned, much less likely to be abandoned if you are going in an omni-channel path direction. Let's do a reality check for retailers, but I think it's very valid across the business. In the face of challenging economic conditions, retailers have been forced to question what is the value of the physical store. Definitely caught between a rock and hard place with a strong pressure from the e-commerce and in fact an overabundance of retail store and also and above all a changing of the consumer habit. Despite that, the old fashion shop are still where a lot of things are happening. More than 85% of spend is still happening through brick and mortar. So the stores remain a very, very important part of the customer journey, either because of the research of product, or famous showrooming or fulfillment of the online orders. One advantage that the physical store have towards the e-commerce obviously is the fact that you can touch, you can feel, sample the product, but it's not anymore enough. You need to get the customer excited, and you need to make sure that you understand what you can offer more in this environment. In 2018, the retail sector underwent a massive shift through experimental innovation, where 71% of the merchants were actively investing in revamping their stores to the high tech. The brands were starting to embrace this seamless technology and reconsider the definition of the retail experience regardless of the channel in order to survive in this changed landscape. Nevertheless, lack of purpose, fear of new technologies, failing to keep the pace with customer preference resulted anyway in an unprecedented number of store closure. Deloitte is showing that in 2019, we had a net total of more than 9,000 store closed in the UK, which was a fifth more than 2018. This is the equivalent of 25 stores a day. So obviously, something must still change. Even so, it can be said even more that in the beginning of 2020, due to the COVID-19 crisis. While, of course, the scale of impact differs from country to country, the underlying trends are still similar. First of all, there is a shift on the shopping behavior. So the consumer spend has changed quite dramatically towards the essential and home goods, much less towards the essential luxury goods that have in fact had a very negative impact. We see, for example, one of the few examples is Laura Ashley that was falling into administration this year, but J. Crew as well in US. So conversely, the online shopping experience has increased, particularly obviously in grocery and on the essentials. There have been, in fact, some companies that have been flexible enough to readapt their production and distribution towards a change of the customer needs. An example is LVMH, of course, that was repurposing their production towards the hand sanitizer. It's not the only one we know. There were also operational impact though, because not only the footfall has fallen in the stores, but the footfall has increased in some areas in a dramatic way, so much that some companies were unable, in fact, to manage the impact on the supply chain and had to close some online stores, like, for example, Next. But I'm in UK thinking about the dramatic dramatic difficulties of supplying the people in by the groceries online. I'm thinking about Ocado, but I may mention all the others in the exact same way. So obviously this has brought a huge financial impact, a drop in revenues, particularly on the luxury retailers and the clothes retailers. We have seen in UK a minus 20% of spend in clothes and shoes in the beginning of 2020, with a minus 11 billion result. This is according to global data. All of that has brought a liquidity concern, and of course, people unfortunately laid off. So how we face this? Of course, fueled by an understanding that the stores rely on the combination of physical touchpoint and digital technology, the retailers are reconsidering the purpose of the brick and mortar, the more and more. Communication and experience is a key in the modern era. There must be a clear link between physical and digital, a reason for the customer to engage with the brand in the long run, outside just buying products. Successful retail brands that introduce digital by introducing bespoke mobile app, sophisticated loyalty schemes, fully integrated omnichannel campaign, not replacing physical with digital, but having them to run in tandem. By connecting the emotional aspect of the in-store retail with the functional side of digital, plus appealing to the customer demands in a much more clear and focalized way, retailers are able to rise up and prosper. But this is not just a retailer issue. Since 2015, it has been underlined the fact that there is a shift, a game-changing shift in the control of the buying process by the consumer. Why the shift happened? The power, in fact, is now on the side of the consumer because the product availability is very high, especially on the internet. The contents on the product are available everywhere, not only on your website, but also in other website, an affiliated website, in social media. And on top of that, it is easy to share positive, but also especially negative experience. And we know by experience, and the human being, it's in fact more focused on sharing the negative than the positive. And this, of course, it's a risk for the businesses. And this is forcing the businesses to refocus on the customer instead on their sales channel. Digital revolution is not just online revolution, is a purely digital transformation, and has brought a temptation of a vast array of opportunities. So it's very important to make sure that your marketeers are able to refocus and looking in the right direction, namely towards the customer, applying the technologies and the business insights in order to help your business to stay on course. Today I'm gonna structure the presentation by underlining what is the hexagon of the 6 disciplines of Omnichannel. It's very interesting approach that has been presented by Hullind and Rasmus in a very interesting book named Make All About Me. What are the 6 disciplines of Omnichannel that are helping you to make sure that you are doing the right Omnichannel transformation in your company? First of all, the customer recognition and permission, the data collection, the data analytics and AI, the communication and service and how they are impacted from this transformation, the performance analysis, and the organization and management. The more and more you go towards the direction of the consumer in this chart, the more the company shows maturity. It's very interesting. In some parts of the presentation, I will showcase what would be the steps towards that. Typically for the data collection, you pass from the operational data collection to the customer data collection in the channels, but in a silos way and then in integrated way. For the digital data analytics and AI, on the contrary, you pass from the historical analysis, that is something that most of the companies are already doing, to ad hoc AI and customer focus, to pervasive AI. For the communication, usually the passage from less mature to more mature company goes through from mass communication to personalized segmented communication to one-to-one AI and machine learning driven communication. Regarding the performance analysis, this is also shifting because you shift from sales and brand performance to channel and campaign performance to customer-centric metrics, and we'll see this in a bit. And finally, in terms of organization and management, usually the company are doing this kind of a path from product focus to sales oriented, so communication, to customer centric. The four types of archetypes of omnichannel company maturities are identified on the slide on the right, whereas in fact there is a combination between how more direct is the communication toward the customer versus how many customer insights you can use. Identifying four types of companies, the scientists, more addressed towards the insights, but less through direct communication. So you have the data, but you don't use that very well. The manufacturers that are in fact more orientated to well, production, but less to understanding what the customer wants or communicating in a proper way. The salespeople that are, yes, of course, having done a step ahead in terms of communication, but having less information about the customer. And finally, the trusted advisor, which represents the best combination because you are using and collecting the data in the proper way, using them through data analytics in order to then define models that are helping you to communicate at the right time to the right person in the right way, and then be, of course, nearer to the customer. So, in a nutshell, what are the key takeouts? First of all, a well-executed omnichannel approach can have a very positive impact on your business. We have seen that in the figures. The digitization and diffusion of the e-commerce allowed a power shift towards the customer choices. So you need to be ready to understand what they want and even to anticipate their needs. Customer centricity is not anymore an option, but it is a must. A must that is helping you not only to thrive, but sometimes to survive. So let's talk about customer recognition and permission. Why do you think the customer recognition and permission is important? Because it is the foundation of a personal interaction, because it allows to switch from paid to on media, because it allows a better understanding of the customer, or all of the above. Let's see what it's your opinion. That's interesting. Okay, I want to give you an opinion. Cool. Okay. So it seems that everyone is almost convinced that it's all of the above. And yes, you do definitely are right. Recognizing a customer is the foundation of being personal. And it's in the meantime, also the foundation of a personal interaction, and allows to switch you also from paid to on media. We'll talk about that in a second. So all the answers were somehow right, but of course you start from the being personal with them. How many of your customers can you recognize across channels? Can you reach out of them on a one base? If you do that, then you can in fact switch to your own media from your paid media, and be also more efficient in the communication. So you are right. Today, buzzword for retail is personalization. Yet, in reality, it's an older characteristic of shopping, where a shopkeeper or store staff would know customer by name. They would know their previous purchases, their preferences. They would know their family information, and so on. In the online world, conversely, there is more personal information captured about us than ever before. The future of retail and any customer-centric business, I would add, may look increasingly like the store of the past, but this time it's data via artificial intelligence and machine learning that makes personalization even more possible. Let's look at the video that I found very, very interesting, of an example of a company that is starting to do that.
Fashion don't always mix. Wearables are ugly, and people still want to try things on in a store. But Rebecca Minkoff has built a tech-fueled fashion line that redefines all of this. Bracelets that charge your phone, dresses with a 3D print, and a boutique that changes the way people shop. And it starts with these mirrors.
First thing I do is I ask you if you want something to drink. So we'll go over here to sip, and what we do is we have a menu option. So it could be water, sparkling water, green tea, coffee, espresso, or even bubbly.
I don't see a fine scotch on there.
We'll have to add that just for you.
Thank you. You specifically have a software background, and I think a lot of people would think that doesn't really translate into fashion. But what was the lessons that you brought from software that you found a really surprising application for here?
Kind of every step of the way, I took this kind of tech-first initiative. You know, who's the end user, right? What does the funnel look like? So it's kind of been this tech-focused way to building a fashion company, and it was very different. And so running a company with those thoughts in mind, just add a different mentality that I think gives us kind of an X factor.
And in partnership with eBay, which built the technology, they use this X factor to guide me through the store. I ordered a green tea, which was delivered to me, and some items to, well, probably not to try on, but I got a text when they were ready in my dressing room. We picked up a jacket along the way to keep the system on its toes.
I'm gonna come in, and as you just saw, it just popped up on the screen.
Wow, that was really fast. It instantly knew what was in the room.
Yeah, so one of the things we'll do here is we'll come back here. Clearly we have a small here, but let's say the small didn't fit, right? And we wanted, you know, an extra small. And so we're gonna say, bring this to my room. It's kind of like with Uber, right? So you see that.
Exactly like with Uber.
So now you know who your store associate is. So she's gonna be there in a minute. So you now don't need to leave half naked. You don't need to go. You don't need to go finding out who works here, who's my stylist, right? You get to stay here.
Because the only thing worse than asking if somebody works here is asking if somebody works here while you're
half naked. Exactly. The other thing we looked at was lighting. You might want
Soho After Dark.
Soho After Dark lighting. If you want something that's more sunny, you have Brooklyn Morning, Afternoon on the High Line, or the Hudson River Sunset. Now you can get some confidence around what it might look like in your end use case. Again, a software term, but what's the end use case?
And what does Rebecca Minkoff get? A valuable data record of everything her customers like and what they're pairing it with. And that is getting her attention from everyone. Do you expect that your competitors, if you think of them as competitors, are coming in here and seeing these things and starting to build them for themselves?
We know our competitors are coming in.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So it is going to be a space race of fitting rooms.
It'll be a space race, but the beautiful part is our relationship with eBay is that it's a long-term contract, and we're always first in. So people can come, they can see it, they can feel it, and they're going to always get, version 1 while we're at 1.2.
There's also a challenge here as a designer because you want to be inventing and, you want to be thinking in ways that other people aren't. But the temptation, once you have a lot of data, may be to just serve what the data says. That if people like this kind of thing, just make this kind of thing.
Right.
So you, at some point, have to say, you know what, screw the data.
I think you're looking at the data, but you always have to keep innovating. I think it's taking this data, solving a problem with it, and then what is the next thing that the customer doesn't know that they want, right? That we could do that would make them excited.
Well, speaking of the user experience, wasn't champagne on that menu? Perfect.
So, so customer recognition and permission makes feel that to your customer that they are at the center of your attention. So you have to be able to recognize them no matter which communication channel you meet them on. It's extremely important that the systematic customer recognition and permission gathering is the foundation for personalizing your communication and the key to be able to analyze data going forward. So if you don't know who you are talking to, how will you be able to make it all about them? How does it work? Usually, maturity in customer recognition and permission gathering is a matter of identifying the customer, first of all, being able to interconnect different types of permission for the same customer, for as many as customers as possible, for as many as devices as possible, and then keeping them engaged so they are just not dead meat in your database, but they are in fact feeling that the communication about their data that are sharing with you, it's relevant. Why? This is also extremely important in terms of GDPR. I guess that you are acquainted already with the GDPR rules. When you ask for the permission, you always need to make sure that the data are used and to make sure that you communicate the way they are used. How the type of recognition can come, which kind of type of recognition can happen. These are only some that I mentioned here. Of course, there may be others. These are the most important one. One is the cookie. When you place, in fact, a cookie on the first visit of your customer to your website, and then you can follow him up or her up across the different devices, and it's helping you to understand more, to have more behavioral data from it. Login and profiling. So a step ahead, you ask your customer to log in and to complete totally or partially the profile. Bait for email. This is a technique that is used most of the time by B2B, but not only. I know that we did also when I worked in Espresso, by sharing contents, promising the sharing of a report on a specific topic, and provided that, of course, the customer is sharing his contacts. It can be an email, it can be the name and the email, the name, the email and the phone number, etc. Customer recognition via loyalty program is obviously one of the most detailed, because you can not only collect information about your customer profile, but then afterwards also the behavior in terms of preference, consumption, browsing in internet and your tools behavior, etc., etc. Recognition in the physical store, well, that is a classic. This is something that has always happened. It's when your, say, staff is recognizing and in fact asking the people to create their own profile and helping to do that in the store. The mobile apps, another huge source of information, provided that the customer is not only downloading the app, but also creating its own profile. And then there are some new one, like for example, voice recognition. I'm taking the example, for example, of Amazon through Alexa, and facial recognition that is obviously not yet very much developed, or not at all here in Europe, but is definitely going on from strength to strength in Asia, where the rules of GDPR are less stringent. What could be then the types of permission? Because of course, after having recognized your customer, you need to make sure, and I mentioned about the GDPR rule before, you need to make sure that you have the consent to send the information, the offers to each individual customer. And this can happen in different ways. It can happen on social media. It can happen where in fact you, in the moment in which your customer is logging in your profile through an ad, you can ask not only to fill the profile, but also the permission. It can happen through postal address or direct mail if you use databases. It can happen via email, following up, for example, I don't know, a left basket, just as an example. It can be through browser or desktop notification. When they are entering on your website, you are asking them to leave the email and contextually asking the permission to use the data in order to receive any kind of offer or at the first purchase. There are lead gen permissions that I've already mentioned before about sharing report. There are permission campaign via own media and permission campaign via paid media that we are going to talk in a bit. The permission gathering campaign are specific campaign that have the aim to collect not only the data profile of the customer, but also their permission. It can happen through own media. It can happen through paid media. What is the own media? Own media are all the media that you own. So you don't need to pay any kind of media budget or making any kind of media investment in order to do this campaign, because here they can be in your store, they can be on your website, they can be on your Facebook or other social media profile, or on your mobile, through the mobile app, through your customer service centers or call centers, like inbound call, through the inbound call, or also the outbound call in a proactive way, or it can be through direct mail. In terms of paid media, though, you can still do that also through TV campaigns by, for example, asking the customer to go on your website. It can be through Google AdWords. Of course, it can be through banner advertising, through direct mail, or an address mail to a specific database. This is obviously more expensive. Most of the time, you will work on a combination of both, so paid media and also on media. What are the key takeouts of data collection? Recognizing a customer is the foundation of being personal. It helps to switch from paid to own media, increasing the efficiency, because obviously most of the time you start with the paid media in order to collect a bigger database because you don't have a database, but then afterwards, the more and more you are increasing the size of your database, you switch to the own media. And customer recognition and permission gathering must be related to your existing marketing communication efforts. So there is no point to collect data if then you don't use them. Let's talk about data collection again for a moment. If you want your communication to be relevant, then you need to gather data and do this quick. Why do this quick? Because obviously in the current world, the customer is web browsing and then coming to your store, and then it's likely to ask a question on an abandoned basket, or it can ask a question about its profile. If you don't have this information, you may risk to miss the point of really recognize it. So data is your company's memory of every single customer and the base of relevance in your communication and service. So data must systematically be collected, integrated, and updated to provide always a full picture of each customer in the most live way. How and which kind of data you can collect? I've identified only one kind of type of customer data that you might collect and integrate, but in fact there are many. This presentation is not a technical presentation, it's a presentation that is aiming to give you an overview. Of course, as I mentioned to you before, would you need any further information, we can talk about that directly. Customer data, just like a permission, can be characterized as being closer or far from the customer. We're talking in specific about three typologies of data. Submitted data, so that these are the data that your customer is submitting you. It can happen either, as I mentioned before, through a campaign, or it can be because they have discovered your website, or there may be any kind of ways for him to or her to deliver and to prompt this data to you. Let's be clear, the customer, the more and more are in fact happy to share data, provided that they know how you use them. These submitted data are usually profile data, like age, gender, marital status, interests, social media data, preferences, sometimes anniversaries, etc. The closer you go to the customer, the more we are talking about than behavioral data. Behavioral data are, for example, data regarding the physical location of the customer, the purchases, the download that they do, the device data, the different kind of device that they have, login data, recommendation, wish list on their profile in your website, search terms, page views, click, open email that you can collect through, of course, the cookies. And then the emotional data, which are the most difficult to collect because they are expressing what is under the skin of the customer. So it can be, for example, through social media posts or through the Net Promoter Score, if they are participating to one of your surveys, or expressed attitude, like, for example, the reviews. And these may be positive, but may also be negatives. Where data can be collected, as I mentioned to you, and here we are moving from profile to behavioral to emotional. Well, the profile may be sometimes biased or not correct because they are the ones that are provided directly by the customer through website forms, questionnaires, calls, etc. Behavioral data, on the contrary, they are giving you a direction of where the customer is headed because they showcase its behavior. So which transactions, emails, customer club, customer center and chats, data and product services, where in fact, for example, I make the example of Fitbit, but we can also talk about the Nike Run app. Customers are in fact happy to provide the data about how long they run, how many steps they walk, etc. And this is providing you behavioral information that are extremely important. The emotional are the most reliable though, because they are getting under the skin of the customer. So we're talking about most of the time collection through questionnaires, but also through sentiment analysis in social media, and sometimes with the voice analysis program, even though they are not very common yet. What are the best ways of data to be collected? Well, in terms of profile data, one very good example of how things can be done very well, it's LinkedIn. First of all, because it creates a clear motivation to submit. Why? Because you want to share more information in order to be contacted, in order to create a new business, etc., in order to be recruited. So it's in fact on this need from the customer. But also LinkedIn is very attentive to make it easy to submit. And on top of that is using gaming techniques. For example, the LinkedIn percentage of completeness of your profile, which is in fact helping the customer to step by step complete their profile. They also write help pages, and most of the time they are not asking all the data in once, but through the gaming techniques, in fact, they are pushing the customer to not only share profile information, but also even behavioral information, even information regarding themselves. Then there are also another ways to ask for permission to link with social profile. Some of social media are doing that already in an almost automatic way, like Facebook. And another way is in fact helping the customer to understand on a frequent basis, on an ongoing basis, that is important to update their profile. So again, we're talking about LinkedIn, but not only. How the behavioral data, the best way to collect, that can happen through the website, even without the login. If you send the customer an email with a cookie and asking for the, of course, their consent to use the information, you can definitely monitor their behavior in terms of devices. Motivate the login from different devices, that Google is very good on that. They are underlining the fact that you are connecting with another device, and therefore if you say yes, they know that this is your device. This is helping in fact to drill more and more and going more in the direction of understanding we are talking about the same consumer behind the screen or behind the mobile. Persistent login, it's another way, obviously integrating security zone for personal data. Create a service user love to gather data. Amazon did that by purchasing EMDB, that is a website of movie reviews. And that was very useful for Amazon in order to gather information about the preference of movies, which was helping them then to define a very specific and offer for every different customer through their algorithm. From the stores, of course, we're talking about a loyalty program. As I mentioned to you, huge source of information. The app on the mobile, I have the Waitrose app. I don't know if you have, but it's unbelievable. They know exactly when I bought, what are my preferences, and they are using that in order to profile the communication to me. Some brands like Burberry's, for example, have integrated also the mobile POS in store to identify the customer. This is something that also Nespresso has done. And other ways are more, let's say, even more contemporary to collect data into the product. It's into the product itself. Like, for example, I was mentioning Fitbit. Another example is Netflix, where I'm sure that in fact your algorithm is not showing the crazy stuff that is showing to me, because I like all horror movies. And therefore, this is definitely a huge source of information for them. And then I'm moving to emotional. There is, to be honest with you, not yet perfect ways to collect them, because even with the Net Promoter Score questionnaires, not always it's easy to really go under the skin of the customer. But who knows in the future? Let's do a poll now. I want to ask you some opinion. So which type of data is, in your opinion, the best to create a more effective and satisfying omnichannel journey for your customer? Submitted data, behavioral data, emotional data. Okay, sounds like it. Okay, you are a bit influenced by what I said before, which is good. It looks like we have a 50-50, which is good. Yes, so yeah, definitely. Oops, sorry. So yes, some submitted data may be biased or completely wrong. So the closer you go to the customer, better. Ideally, behavioral data, better emotional, even if harder to obtain. So behavioral and emotional definitely are the most important one. How data can be stored? Well, in an omnichannel scenario, usually new data sources are connected in one hub for all customer data, known as a single customer view or customer profile. The single customer view, it's a mix between static data and dynamic data. What are the statics? Well, the static, most of them are profile data or historical interaction, event participation. So it's the data that are looking on the rear mirror. Dynamic data, though, they are showcasing what is the current online behavior, the current click behavior, the most recent purchasing behavior, and the current location. So this, the customer, single customer view or customer profile as a gathering place for data that is important for the interaction with the customer in the near future. It is not by all means a complete collection of all the data, because some historical data, they may become in fact old at a certain point or not usable anymore. But rather it's a collection of the most important historical interaction, master data, purchase history, behavior, and dynamic information that you can use in order to have a full overview of the single customer. Where they can be stored. Usually the full customer profile reside in the dispersed format throughout the marketing cloud most of the time. Alternatively, and this is what I recommend, it may be stored in what are now called the customer data platform or the data management platform. The customer data platform is a marketing control data platform that is holding and managing all the data available about each customer. So, but not only about non-customer or unknown customers or passerby, so customers that didn't profile themselves, but maybe they bought without creating an account. It's a platform where, in fact, there are included the dynamic segments that are, in fact, related to each customer. So it creates segmentation through the artificial intelligence. Supply communication platform with these insights, and sometimes executes communication through automated communication flows. So it depends on the platform. It's definitely the most complete way to have a unique customer view. Data management platform, though, they are entirely focused on optimizing the use of paid media. So they help you to create a bigger database from the paid media, and then use it for different uses. So it couples first-party data sources like the CRM sources, the e-commerce systems sources, etc., with in-market data sources that are consisting in anonymous cookies, audience that are collected across the various campaign and then enriched in numerous ways in the following campaigns. So what are the key takeouts? If you want your communication to be relevant, then you need to gather data. If you want to collect them and update them. So if you want to be relevant for your customer, you need to be able to achieve a single customer view, and never forget, obviously, to be explicit in the permission to collect the data. So I think that we are in the half of the presentation, so let's take now 5 minutes break, and let's come later in 5 minutes. Here we go again, everyone. So we talk about data analytics now. I promise you I'm trying not to be too boring in this part. I just want to preempt, I'm not a data scientist, but I'll try to be very clear for you as end user, what does it mean? Having direct access to data during customer interaction is valuable and enables in fact personalized approach. We have seen that. Using analytics and AI on the underlying data, though, can take us even further. Advanced analytical technique can use any or all of the available data in your database to recommend or specify which kind of action to take in any interaction with the customer to reach an individual, personalized, and very relevant communication. We talk always about big data and AI. What is the difference? Big data was a definition that was created in 2010 based on the volume, variety, velocity, and veracity of the data that were involved. Despite the big value, at the time it was not clear that big data needs to be correlated to the business execution and needs to be grounded on it to become relevant. And that's what, in fact, AI is doing. AI subsumes the database and analytical technologies of big data, while enabling even broader possibilities for adding machine intelligence to the business operation. In our specific case, we are talking about machine learning or artificial intelligence as machine learning with a specific application on customer understanding. Machine learning is an umbrella term for algorithms that can consider historical data or behavioral data, work out what's being going on, and apply their findings to make accurate and robust assessment of current and future cases, helping you then to define the pattern of some future application to the customer. But what does it mean? What does it mean for the business? Marketing department have always worked with data. Here, though we are talking about the next step, we're talking about a continuum of approaches, techniques, technologies in which, in fact, the conventional analysis that has been done so far blends seamlessly into advanced analytics and AI. We usually talk about three kinds of analysis in order to differentiate, in fact, what has been done in the past and what can be done through AI. Descriptive analytics, in fact, includes the traditional statistic. In business can involve calculation on spreadsheets, queries against database, and generation of business intelligence reports and dashboards, but as a rear view mirror perspective. It's looking back at what it happened in the past, and then business intelligence in the company can introduce KPIs in order to forecast the future, but still is not so much precise for the consumer. Predictive analytics also start from historical data, but in this case, machine learning algorithm automatically explore the data to find the patterns and relationship that relates to the business outcomes, such as, for example, a propensity of a customer to purchase a particular type of product. These patterns are insights that then marketers can use, but the algorithm also produce something that is very actionable, the creation of models that can assess any current or new case and automatically predict its outcome. Predictive model return a simple assessment of each case. Often is a number that is a propensity or score. These models can also be used as base for forecasting, but it's a much more detailed forecasting and more precise than the descriptive analytics forecasting. Then we have prescriptive analytics that are turning out the output of a predictive model, for example, a score, into a directly actionable decision by combining this score with the business logic in order to decide what to do in each case. For example, whether to deliver an offer, what should be the channel for this offer, etc. Because predictive and prescriptive analytics are based on the artificial intelligence, we're talking about machine learning here. Advanced analytics are applied to any area of the business, not only in marketing. They can be applied to finance, to risk assessment, network planning, operations, supply chain, etc. Where there is data, you can use it in order to integrate this in artificial intelligence. Here, though, we are focusing on individual customer analysis, and we talk about use case in that specific case. As I mentioned to you before, machine learning algorithms create models that are based on historical data. These models are updated as the customer behaviors and preferences change by relearning from the latest data and produce output, such as, for example, a product or an offer that is more likely to appeal to a certain type of customer. This helps to create a customer segment and go beyond, which is in fact the simple segmentation that usually marketing does, and really underlining which characteristic and profile distinguish each customer as an individual, who they are, what message they would react to, how they choose to interact, when they prefer the interaction to happen, for example. These are some of the possible type of models that can be created. I would not go into the detail of each of them. We have the classification model, that is simply distinguishing and identifying a customer that is more likely to like one product towards another. Scoring models that are predicting the likelihood of something happening, for example, of a customer responding to an offer or buying a determinate service. Clustering or auto-segmentation, I've talked very quickly before, but it's basically helping to create groups or segment of customers that can be distinguished by their characteristic, preference or behaviors. And these not by creating static segment, but segment that can be in fact updated at every behavioral change. Then association analysis that are identifying a set of items that tends to occur together, like for example, a customer is buying a certain kind of product, so is likely to buy another kind of product. This is what Amazon does all the time. I'm sure that you saw that if you are an Amazon customer, at every kind of purchase, there is a recommendation that is based on your historical interaction with Amazon, but also to the current potential purchase. Then sequence detection, that is similar to association, but finds a set of items or events that happen in a particular sequence. For example, the likelihood for a subscription to be upgraded by a customer. And finally, the forecasting or estimation that gives you a predicted numerical value for something that will happen over time. How much a customer will spend, for example, on a new product or service. Although marketing action are usually related to encouragement to buy, though savvy organization often talk about next best action instead of next best offer. In fact, at any point in the customer relationship, there may be a number of actions that could be taken to the customer, which don't necessarily represent sales. Like, for example, it can be an apology, it can be a compensation for something. Applying the next best action, though, requires an automatic proceed to scale this approach to every single customer interaction. Where do you start? Building a high organization is a work in progress. I mentioned you many times in this presentation. So start from the low-hanging fruits. Identify possible use case and ask yourself, how do they fit with your marketing objective? What is the value that they can bring to your business? And how demanding the analytical approach will be for your teams? What data will be required? How easily you can operationalize them in the company? And is there enough data that you have available in order to do that? And then make a ranking of the portfolio of use case based on what I mentioned before. So AI should never be a blind application of technology. Analysis should follow a methodological and systematic business approach. It shouldn't be a technical exercise. It is crucial to incorporate the business knowledge, the business mission, the brand mission. And most of the time, it's a work in progress, so you need to build progressively your AI capability. It's very difficult to do this on a one-off basis. Well, now what I would go to talk about is, in fact, what does it mean in practical in terms of omnichannel, particularly with the reference of marketing and services. Here, one question for you. How data insight and machine intelligence should be used in your business, in your opinion, to create the best offer for the customer, to tailor the right communication, service, and deals at the right time, to know more about the customer? Okay, good. Okay, yes, that's true. Oh my God. Data and insight derived from AI don't have a value until they are used in action. Data and machine intelligence should be used to tailor the right communication, service, and deals at the right time. This is a way you will acknowledge that the history of with your customer at every interaction. And I would like to share with you an example of that I found really spot on. It is referring to a shop of Nike in LA.
Hey, what's up, guys? Mondo Fresco here at Nike by Melrose. It's a first of its kind, a store for members by members. Let's go check it out. So I'm here with Sean. Sean, tell me a little bit about Nike by Melrose.
Sure. So this is Nike by Melrose, and this is the very first Nike Live concept store that we've opened. We're super excited. It's here in LA, and you know the high level is we built this store for our members, and everything that we know about them informs the product, the style, the building, even where it is.
So what makes this store so special and so unique?
The first time we started with, what are people doing in this neighborhood? What are they wearing? What products do they love? What services do they need? And we put that here. And so you're going to see product that you wouldn't see come into a store otherwise. So everything from the things they buy all year long to the things that they buy and they run with. So we're pretty excited about it.
As you walk through the store, you see a lot of Nike apparel and Nike sneakers, but I also saw some Nike Air Force Ones and some Cortezes as well. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so again, when we look at who our members are, who live and work in this neighborhood, they're equal parts focused on their fitness and their style. And when you study those folks and what they love, you get those mixes. Someone might run in the Pegasus and throw on the Cortez when they go out, and we want to be able to serve that whole member.
My favorite part is that you're building a relationship with the customer. You know, I've built relationships with guys that work at stores, and I get the text. I'm like, hey man, are you guys getting the new Jordan 1s? Are you guys? And now you can build that relationship with this particular store. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, we're going to allow our members to text our store associates, which if you look in the window, there's not a traditional window display, it's our phone number, and it's an invitation sent as a text, right? So the invitation is come and have a relationship with our people. We'll let you drive and park in the back. We'll do curbside. Find something on Insta, send us a picture. If we have it, we'll meet you in the back, get it to you. We can set you up with an appointment. But yeah, we want to be kind of your people from Nike.
So I found that absolutely amazing, this kind of example, because it's definitely starting from the customer insight and information, and it's creating a real interaction with the customer. So what are we talking in this chapter? First of all, we're talking about what omnichannel means in the customer experience and what the challenges to overcome in order to achieve the customer centricity. Which moments in customer journey can be leveraged in order to go closer to them, the tactics to that, what distinguish the different channels in order to target the messaging, and for the retailers particularly, how data can be used in order to strengthen the relationship without appearing creepy, and what system can be used. Well, the first thing that you need to consider is that a brand mission needs to be at the driving seat. So a better customer understanding doesn't mean that these must be related only to immediate offers, points, or loyalty cards or discounts. It's important that you make sure that the benefit you offer have the aim to support the brand and the vision that you are on. And that's why we're talking about omnichannel in the medium long term as a step-by-step process, where in fact the results cannot be judged only on one offer. And that's even more important, that you have in fact a gradual creation of your unique omnichannel experience. So no one likes to be sold, but we all like buying into something. So this is why working with customer insights is winning, because you can make a personalized offering, so marketing somehow becomes a service. You can craft a message based on a service that can be of added value for the customer without selling anything, but strengthening your future opportunity to sell. One example of my previous experience with that, it's in Espresso, when we launched a new fast and green delivery, and we communicate about this delivery because of the fact that it was a delivery that was absolutely very sustainable, done by bike, and no matter if in fact the usage of this service would have increased our sales, but it would have certainly increased our brand reputation. As I mentioned, maximizing relevance doesn't come overnight. It is a gradual process, as you won't immediately have a rich database for every customer. So the starting point will be always mass communication to then, and most of the time paid communication, to then start to build your customer profile. What is the difference between campaign-driven and data-driven companies? Well, campaign-driven is when in fact you are doing mass marketing campaign, following most of the time the life cycle of the product, and the season, the calendar events, but you are not following the customer life cycle. Whereas data-driven campaign with the data insight that you have collected and the usage of AI, you can time the campaign according to the customer life cycle. This looks a very complicated slide, but basically it's just two examples of that for retail and subscription businesses. So the customer life cycle most of the time can be summarized in 3 phases or simplified. Attract phase, where you attract your customer before the purchase. The develop phase, in which you are in fact following the customer on the purchase journey and after it, and then retain. Getting the timing right is key. You need to make sure that in fact you are getting nearer to the customer the more and more this phase developed. This phasing is not only though for retail or for subscription. It can be for pure play e-commerce, it can be for travel companies or any other service that can be bought online. And of course it can be not only for the digital service subscription, but also for the more usual subscription or traditional one, like the subscription to the magazine or a membership organization. As you can see, I'm taking the example of the retail. You start with a personalized permission capture, then a welcome program when people are giving it their information, and then start to talk about the category in order to create even more interested, follow up the abandoned basket, and then send a personalized newsletter. And then in the phase of development, there are a lot of tools that you can use in order to get under the skin of the consumer and therefore collect data and then define what are the next best action. For example, profiling them to a service, make a follow-up to a purchase, send a purchase satisfaction questionnaire, underline potential product replenishments, like for example Vision Direct is doing with me for my contact lenses, and present new products or a new collection or new accessories or new offers, or contact because of an anniversary or a birthday, and I don't know, send a localized communication on a local event, underline where the product that was in the wish list is now back in stock, underline some store proximity if you open a new store, or make a service reminder. Typically, for example, Nespresso is doing this for the descaling of the coffee machine when it's time, through the machine itself or through email. And then for the retain phase, it can be your point communication on the fact that your club loyalty card points are expiring, or asking for participating to a questionnaire on the Net Promoter Score, or ask for permission if, for example, they are up to abandon you, so they don't get in touch again with you since a while. And then finally, last ratio, the win-back offer. Subscription is very similar. There are some little differences, like for example, the sign up completion, or the trial before to pay, and so on. But that are the most important phases of the life cycle of the customer that you can follow up. Getting timing right is a good step towards being relevant, but is not the universal tactic that you can use. There are other relevance tactics that I've underlined here, that in fact, the more and more you go up on the pyramid, the more and more you are nearer to what is the customer preference the customer interaction. So there can be, for example, campaign that that are also named real marketing campaign, the contextual timing campaign, that are referring to something that is happening in the outside world. One example, very recent, is, for example, the Nike campaign, Don't Do It. I'm sure that you have seen that, and it was in reference to Black Lives Matter movements. This campaign was aimed to create, in fact, also a reaction, or like a contextualize a brand in the world. Personification campaign, where in fact, for example, you receive communication from someone that is slightly different from the classical brand. I'm talking, for example, what is happening to some retailers, fashion retailers online, that have created their own concierge. I have an example that is Moda Operandi. I receive communication from the concierge that are related to advices or communicate specific offers that are related to my interest. Customer to customer, quite similar to what I mentioned before, also regarding the contextual timing. One example is Always, that started time ago the conversation on Like a Girl campaign on insecurity of female teenagers, and those was helping, in fact, to create interaction among the customer and increase the brand reputation. Segmentation placement, or a segmentation overall. Segmented placement is when you, in fact, identify a specific when you identify a specific segment of customer, and you communicate through media, either own or a paid media, to this specific segment, a specific message. Segmentation, though, I've talked plenty about before. It's addressing a certain message by dividing the audience in groups with certain characteristics. Localization, so campaigns that are really locally referred, or personalization, where you can segment the campaign towards a specific persona of customers, so it's even more detailed than the segmentation. And finally, triggering one-to-one, that is, in fact, sending relevant messaging, relevant timings to the relevant recipients. For example, Interflora is doing that with your profile. If you have underlined, if you have purchased a specific gift, Christmas or anniversary, or a birthday gift for a person, they are getting back to you, saying, do you remember what you purchased at that time, etc., and helping you to remember. Or personal services with AI, which are, in fact, combining the AI power with the good old-fashioned customer service that can be in store or in call center, and giving the team in store or call center the availability of data in order to personalize your offer. Then there are the classic omnichannel commerce features. These are very typical of companies that have a physical retail, that are very important and are considered almost as a given from the shopper. For example, returning the customer the items in store after having bought online, the click and collect, the endless aisle, that is a bit more infrequent, where in store you cannot have the full range, but you can order online for your customer already directly in the store. Split order, that it's giving the customer the opportunity to use an offer when even if they are buying in two different ways, with two different orders. The reserve and collect, that is like click and collect, but you pay in store, and the shipping from the store, that is a basic, honestly. A seamless channel experience always pays. The more and more frequently it happens that a customer make the so-called show roaming or web roaming. Show roaming as going in store to discover more to then buying online, or web roaming, meaning browsing before visiting and buying then in store. A well omnichannel business doesn't complain about this behavior, but can use this behavior as an occasion to collect data and make easy the purchase journey, even if the customer changes the channel. One example, for example, it's IKEA, the kitchen configurator. You can do your configuration online and then go into the store and order the kitchen that you prepare for yourself. This is possible only with a serious channel integration. I promise you that I went through an overview of the role of the channels. Well, of course, I can talk about them for a while. So in interest of time, I can tell you that I divided here two kinds of channels: the owned channels and the paid and earned channels. The owned channels are the channels that you can control the most. We're talking about e-commerce, mobile app, retail, CRC, devices, as I mentioned to you before, Fitbit, chatbot, text and SMS, emails, direct mail, and blogs. Each of these channels has a different kind of main objective. In general, what I can tell you is that the more you go in the direction of digitization, so connect the channel, and the more and the better you can collect data and precise data about your customer. And then obviously all of them are important, but there is no mandatory obligation of being in all of them. It really depends on your business and what is your brand purpose and your mission. I was talking about paid and earned channels. So paid channels, of course, are the channels, as I mentioned before, where you are paying in order to be exposed with the message. So we're talking about TV, radio, print, outdoor, packaging somehow, display, advertising, online, events, search marketing, so Google search, etc., PR influencer, and social media. What is the difference between paid and earned? In fact, earned represented it's the result of your brand reputation, and the coverage, it's independent by the fact that you're doing paid media or by a specific proactive action from the company. It's of course the result of the PR management when you have a coverage online, but it may be in fact the result of a positive review from the customer in affiliated channels or in social media, and this is all depending on your brand reputation. So a question for you. Creating a satisfying omnichannel journey for your customer means being present. Oh, sorry, I give you already the answer. That's easy. Creating a satisfying omnichannel journey for you means being present in all the channels, managing your channels well, choosing the channels that are relevant for your business, creating a seamless experience for your customer. That's an easy one. Looks like you have understood. Let's see if there is any. Yeah. Okay, yes, that's exact. Being an omnichannel company doesn't mean being spread in all the channels. Your channel's presence will depend on the customer journey and the experience that you want or need your customer to live. And it depends on your brand and business objective. So being omnichannel means that you need to make sure your customer is living a satisfying, consistent, and seamless experience in all the channels where you are present as a brand. The choice of the presence depends completely on you. Finally, what is the marketing technologies? I mentioned to you before, in order to collect data and also in order to use artificial intelligence with this data and the machine learning, you can have customer database platform and data management platforms. But there are plenty of other tools for obvious reason. I'm not going to mention the brands, but I'm going to mention the kind of tools. They can be demand-side platforms or multi-channel marketing apps, marketing automation platform, influencer relationship platform, or the basic usual CRM system, content management system that are helping you to collect all the content, marketing resource management that are helping you to manage your marketing resources in the proper way, digital asset management, social media management platform, and experience clouds. You can choose as many as your business needs, but remember, there need to be people behind them. So it is an investment in terms of budget, in terms of then interaction between the platform, and in terms of expertise of your team. So the key takeouts of this chapter: to be omnichannel doesn't mean to be present in every channel. The choice of the channel will depend on your customer behavior and preference and on your business priorities. So business is always behind omnichannel. Scale up gradually. Don't do it immediately all together. Try to scale up gradually and do it well. And give your marketing team the right tools. Let's talk about performance analysis. Performance analysis, of course, I have already mentioned to you before. It's a bit different if you are going in the direction of the omnichannel. With omnichannel marketing, you need to monitor different metrics from the usual one. Customer-centric focus is important, even more important if you go in the direction of omnichannel. This will require to all departments of your company to stop focusing only on their goals and focusing on metrics that transcend their channels, because modern customer doesn't restrict to interacting through only one channel. They choose the channel that is convenient for them, and it's a unique brand, the one that they perceive. The more and more you go towards the maturity level of the customer, and the more the metrics are switching to consumer-specific metrics. From the maturity level one, where you are focusing on sales performance, to the maturity level 2 of a company, where not only you focus on the performance, but you also focus on the channel performance, without though a strong understood connection between the channels, to then the maturity level number 3, that is focusing on customer-specific metrics. The customer lifetime value and the net promoter score, I'll talk in a second. The intake of new customer, the customer churn or attrition, the share of wallet, the cost per lead, the cost of acquisition, the customer acquisition cost, and the retention cost are the metrics that you aim to evaluate. Let's look at the 2 most important metrics. The CLV represent the present value of the future cash flow that are attributed to a customer during the entire relationship with the company. And it is therefore helping to define how much money it is worth to invest in acquiring an additional new customer, or CAC, the customer acquisition cost, that is a metric that is fundamental for your business. NPS, though it's totally directly related to the kind of interaction that you had with the customer, as well as to your reputation. It's the difference between the percentage of promoter and detractors of your business. It represents a strong indicator of the value of the customer base, because the promoters represent the best customer in your database. They are the one to cherish, and through word of mouth, they play a major role to determine the customer lifetime value and the customer acquisition. What are the pros and cons of the customer-centric metrics? Well, the pros, of course, they are providing a channel-independent picture of the customer value. They input on how much to spend for a new customer acquisition, which is very important. They can demonstrate the effect of new initiatives across the channels, not in every single channel. But the cons, of course, CLV, it's difficult to calculate, and it requires integration of multiple sources to dig deeper into the links and the attribution of the channel. The ideal case scenario is to combine customer-centric with channel-specific metrics, so that you can make sure that the channels are not rowing against your end goal of creating a more profitable and satisfied customers. So the key takeouts is focusing on a customer-centric metric is key. Combining with the channel metrics is equally important. Sharing and onboarding every team on these metrics through shared KPIs is fundamental. And I'm talking about that on the organization and management, which is the last short chapter of this presentation. Organization and incentive structure must support the best possible service for the customer across the channels. The risk, in fact, is that the individual agendas and objectives across the people and channel will quickly block you towards omnichannel customer experience. So your team also must possess the right skills and tools, because of course we are talking about tools that are quite complex, so they demand specific know-how. What do you need in practical terms? You need a CEO support. It's fundamental. The support of the board is fundamental. A collaboration between the department that is very strict. The realignment of the incentive structure towards these new customer-centric goals. A global marketing organization that is focused on omni-channel transformation and has the right skills and resources. The creation of a new operating model for the omnichannel marketing and services. And finally, instilling an omnichannel culture in the organization, which is fundamental, because omnichannel is not only marketing, but it's service, it's finance, it's retail, and so on and so forth. Two key points, though, on the business transformation. Omnichannel implies a profound change within not only the marketing, but also other part of the business. And it's a work in progress change. It doesn't happen in a day. So, if we go, friends, we are at the end. These are my conclusions. The customer experiences your brand as one, independently by the channel. Getting personal with your customer is the first step to make your brand known, but especially also loved. You have the solution in your hands, your customer unique view, your business vision. Remember, though, that every omnichannel approach is unique, so you have to build it for your brand with your vision. Sorry. And finally, don't be scared. Embrace the omnichannel transformation and put the resources behind it, because it is worth it. So this is the end. Thank you very much. As I mentioned to you before, for any question or support needed, please get in touch. These are my contacts, yeah, I wish you a very good start of your omnichannel path.